This is Power 102 Digital Friday. On a Friday, the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, they host Hard Talk. Hard Talk starts now. I see the main man with the action plan is here. Rondell Fields, and I see his right-hand main man is here also. Shervon Lewis, good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, Mark. Once again, thanks for having us. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Good afternoon, those of you. If you're down the region, if you're in the United States, no matter where in the world you are, it's hard talk again, as Mark would have rightfully said. Shervon, good afternoon, brother. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, brother. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, David. Afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago, and those joining us internationally. Welcome to the Hard Talk program. We have a lot to talk about today, Rondell.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And as Mark alluded to, Shervon, this week there was a consultation, and we decided that hey, this is the best time for us to give our personal review, to give our personal take on a number of things that took place, possibly just our general consensus on the feel of the consultations. The consultation that was put on by the Attorney General's office. An office, Shervon, we've been trying to get in contact with for a long, long time. An office where we've sent a number of letters and we've received a lot of promises to be able to meet with them. However, nonetheless, it wasn't a meeting of a sorts. It was supposed to be a public consultation. And what I think, Shervon, was a matter that was brought before the court, I believe,
Yeah.
where there was
This is the Attorney General.
right. Call the case against Shervon Totlambi versus the Attorney General.
Todd Lampkin versus the Attorney General. Yeah.
Right. And this was the grandmother. Correct me, Shervon, if I need to. This was the grandmother,
This was
grandma, or the mother of a victim of domestic violence, grandmother also of their child that actually brought a matter before the state. I my personal view, Shervon, I don't know what's your view. I think it was. I wouldn't say. I think it was an intelligent move, even though I don't know if some disagreed with it, but I agreed with Granny moving. I call her Granny instead of mommy, right? He believed that the state had a right to protect her daughter. Her daughter was actually murdered by her husband. She sought to get, I think, protection orders, and the court, based on what they seem to say about the matter, the court didn't do all that they thought was right or didn't act in the manner it should have acted to protect to protect her daughter. And most times, Shervon, you would hear somebody is killed by be domestic violence, whether it be some other thing. You hardly ever see any recourse. People hardly ever pick it up. People hardly ever do anything. And I mean, that to me, that's why I feel commendable to me that her mother, even after her death, realized that her daughter was of that significance that she believed that, hey, if we came to the state for some particular type of protection that is supposed to be afforded to us, it was a constitutional right that the state should have done all within their power to protect her. And I think this case now is a landmark case, Shervon, where she would have now been able to have the state pay some form of compensation. I didn't look into the case in its depth to know what kind of compensation needs to be made. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it in that kind of depth, Shervon.
No, I'm not sure if compensation has been ordered on it as yet. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure.
So we don't judge on
it. Is that the police and the court feel in its duty to protect daughter, Miss Samantha Isaacs. Definitely a landmark case. And you and I discussed a couple months back where we noted South Africa, where a father took the South African government to court for discrimination on the grounds that he he did not have access to paternity leave in the same way mothers had access to maternity leave.
Correct.
But also found the state to be guilty. And I am wondering, Rondell, if, as you say, granny or moms, if we need to start to take pattern from what Ms. Lampkin has done there. And
Of course.
because we're trying to talk to the state, but the state clearly not interested in talking to us. And in the meanwhile, people are suffering the consequences of it.
Correct. And that's what I say, Shervon. Shervon, it takes a level of confidence and courage for action like that, an activity like that. And not only that, it takes some level of finance to do so as well. And that's why I say courage and confidence, because she put all the chips inside of there. She could have lost them. You understand? So, I mean, I know people, there's a real fear of that type of people taking that type of action because they're in fear of loss and these kind of things. But apart from us, Shervon, I want to encourage anybody. I mean, this is how we started this organization in the first place, is taking a chance. You understand? Where you believe your rights might be infringed upon, no matter what the offense that might have happened to you or a love party of yours, that you take up that right and you take some type of action. So, I mean, to me, as I said, I commend Granny for going out there, seeking justice on behalf of her daughter, and I'd imagine her grandchild as well. It makes sense to me, because now that child has no father, it has no mother. Because the father, I think they said, suicided himself after. And definitely Granny is left with an expense on top of that as well. We're not saying that she's being paid for the murder of a daughter. But I mean, we have to understand that the child himself would need certain type of assistance as well. That child would need counsel. When that child hears the story of what happened between mother and father, that is something that is not easy to treat with. So that Granny has her hands filled. Granny more likely than not me. I don't know how old she is. She has to obviously think of the future. When she gets older, who's going to help him out? So I salute her for taking that action, and I encourage others as well. But where we see the value of bringing action before the court, and then the court sort of, when we did law, they tried to discourage judges from making law in a sense. However, judges do have the flexibility to, in other words, if the society is changing as we see it is rapidly doing, and it is rapidly doing so. You all hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Society is changing, and so that they have the leeway, I would say some bit of a leeway to make what's wrong right. If you understand what I'm saying. So many new things coming in. When these laws were written, you didn't have no WhatsApp. They didn't even have a cell phone in some of those days. So some of them are pressed to do some of these things. But what I am saying also, Shervon, an attorney general, when things are brought before them, shouldn't have to have their hand pushed to this place to take action and have reform or amend laws. It shouldn't have to come to somebody taking you to court to have a judgment made by a judge that will now set a precedent that will now correct something. If you understand where I'm coming from. This is something that you should be eager to do in the Attorney General's office. You should consistently look at what's taking place in your society and try to make current amendments so that you better serve the people in the society as the society develops. That is societal development again. We're talking about that whole week. So every section, yes, the Ministry of Social Development has lamented this week. It's critical and important, but we've seen it even for the AG's office too. We see it even for the lawmakers as well. We've seen it for the parliamentarians. Certain laws that need to be amended, certain laws that possibly need to be removed, and certain laws that we need most definitely to be inserted at certain types and times. So I will give a general consensus of how I felt in the consultation. And Shervon, I guess you will give your own as well. I would say...
Let me, before you go,
go ahead.
Let me establish up front. I want us to stop calling it a consultation.
Oh, gosh.
Consultation. Let me start there. I want you to start there. It was not a consultation. Start there.
Shervon, It was written on the people thing. It was a public consultation, right? The people write on the thing is a public consultation, right? So Shervon already jumped in and he done show what he felt already. And to be quite honest, let me start where Shervon really says for real. The mass consensus of every single person that spoke after, when we were given to speak, possibly about 20 minutes after sitting there for nearly 5 to 6 hours, digesting information from multiple panels. Sometimes, I remember specifically Shervon, when the initial panel came on and it was coming off, I had so many questions for that particular panel. Yeah. So there wasn't even a period where you could engage the panelists from the first panel.
Yeah.
And then come after and engage the panelists from the other panel. So a lot of the contribution that you had to make, a lot of it wasn't made. You weren't allowed to make it because you had to suppress your thoughts and then go into a different trend of thought because a new topic was being discussed. And I concur with you, Shervon, and concur with, if there's one thing everybody was in agreement with there, is that a public consultation must allow the public to consult, must have feedback from the public. The public must be able to contribute. The public must have meaningful or make meaningful representation so as to have the issues on the ground addressed. Let me tell you another problem you have, because you call it a public consultation. In the consultation itself, I don't know if it was just an initial one to start. I'm not sure those persons primarily, I think, that we wanted to target were there as well. I'm not saying we didn't have anybody from any particular target groups. Yes, we had advocates. Yes, we had lawyers. Yes, we had, we saw some schoolgirls there. Yes, we were splintered with just a few schoolboys, 5 or so, is so many. But I wonder if it was really, or is it that we can't have those consultations on the level where we believe people on the grassroots would understand?
Well, you see, that's the thing, right? Someone asked a question, and that, it really irked me. Irk is not the word I was going to use, but we're live on here. I know David get in trouble and all of we get in trouble. But it really got to me. The person asked the question. There's no civil society representative on this panel, right? So there are no religious body representatives.
Correct.
Right? There are advocacy groups. We have the Fathers Association. We have Womantra. We have other groups. There's no representatives of these advocacy and civil society groups on the panel. And one of the I think it's the panelists, one of the panelists responded and said, from the AG's office, well, the person we wanted to get, I think they're out of the country or something, and they call a name. So what did you really telling me? We picking and choosing who we want to what? Agree with what it is we saying? Sing Correct. The song that we're singing? Don't shake, don't rock the boat too much.
Correct.
That's what it is we saying. So we don't have the representatives on the panel. And even though the representatives in the crowd ready and willing to contribute like us and others who were there, you come and narrow down our ability to contribute to what I thought could have been a very productive day. Because on a normal day, Rondell, we do not get the opportunity to sit in a room and have conversations with a judge, right? Correct. And representatives of the judiciary, with the AG Correct. And representatives of his office, right? Correct. With the clinical psychologist who was there to engage in and we'll get to that a bit, but to engage that person and what they were saying a bit. On a normal day, we don't get to have those conversations. On a normal day, we don't be in the same room with Womantra to engage.
Correct.
And hear what they have to say, and they hear what we have to say. And to me,
and I will add to that, Shervon. I still say you still be nice to them, because having even a member of civil society on the panel and we being in the crowd, to me, is a stakeholders meeting. I'm still not calling that a public consultation.
No.
If we have to have a public consultation, the public must be there. Now, I could understand if you're saying before we go to do a public consultation, we are going to have a stakeholders meeting. And we just, in a way, like they are tempted to do, because that wasn't even a good stakeholders meeting, right? You get the NGOs, you get the stakeholders, you get the men on the ground, the advocates, the advocates on the ground, you get the schools and different stakeholders to attend. And then you, as we are saying now, you have a member of civil society, you have a member from the religious community, you have a member from possibly the schools, you have a member from XYZ on the panel, and you have a stakeholders consultation where we will, and because you need that, you need the men on the ground who does go to help the persons on the ground. Because sometimes, with a public consultation, people will come and you have to expect they're going to just talk about the problems.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to have a stakeholders consultation possibly before you have a public consultation. Right? So to me, that is what stuck out most, because the persons who possibly needed to be spoken to after a stakeholders meeting, those are not the persons they're going to invite into the Hyatt. We barely must get an invite. So the thing that frightens me with that, public consultations many a time are stipulated to be had by law before you make certain amendments and certain things like that.
Yep.
But did we really have a public consultation? And in a number of things, this is the way I often see things happen. I often see stakeholders consultation used interchangeably with public consultation. And maybe the law permits for them to facilitate the other. But long and short of the story, are we really getting the public perception on some of the things that's going on? Or are we solely relying on even civil society to represent that? You understand where I'm coming from, Shervon?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because we are part of civil society, right? We could make we could make representation on behalf of people. But I still think if you say public consultation, it must be held in the public with the expectancy that hey, when I go in the public going to say this and the public going to say that. But we hardly ever have a proper public consultation because most times politically we are afraid of the backlash. Look at the Antec attempt to do it, and you saw the backlash. That is public consultation, where anybody in the public was allowed to go when they were at the RIC and they were having this consultation that they were bound by law to have. The members of the public were able, they had it in a community space that the members of the public could have attended to give their voice and give their say. They didn't take on too much people, but by law, it goes recorded that people came out from the public and gave their perspective. I don't know if I could say that is that if that happened on that day.
No, that didn't happen. I want to give you another example. The first time I met and interacted with you and your associate and the Fathers Association while I was not a part of it, while I was assigned, we were invited to a public consultation. Right? We came. It was a difficult conversation, just like you say with that Antec, right? It was a fiery conversation. But after that fiery and rough conversation, what happened after that? A bridge was built and established.
Correct.
Right? Where we could have started to have open dialogue and communication and build things together and resolve things that needed to be resolved. So this whole thing, the people who the people who are in government, they don't walk the same streets we just walk every day. They don't go in the same places we just go every day and face the same things we face every day. This is why the Minister of Health, with all due respect to him, when he was a victim of crime recently, his response was, this is where crime rich. Because he's not where he is every day. He's not there.
Correct.
So how can you sit in your aloof positions and only reach the ground every 4 and 5 years, right? To sit down and attempt to craft law and policy that represents me, the man on the ground, and you are not on the ground listening to my opinion.
And that frightens me. In all the discussions that are come, even when it's consultation for education, most of the time the public hears about these things after. We hear all our stakeholders. We are there sometimes to hear that, hey, people started to introduce new topics and discussion on gender and sexual orientation and them kind of things. And members of civil society like ourselves, we are often there, and if we have our perspective, we contribute. But are we feeling these things out to the public? Who the laws we're going to make, who the policies we're going to make are going to govern over? Isn't that what democracy is supposed to look like? You furnish everybody and then everybody have a vote, everybody have a say. But for some reason, it is always a selected group of, and based on the topics, it's always a selected group that sometimes appears to be hierarchy. And we have to be real when we say it, particularly on particular topics. Some topics they like to throw down to the ground. But other topics, for some reason, they keep in a particular place and then they don't let the ground contribute, even though the mass problem is on the ground.
I want to say good afternoon to Rapid Fire. See your comments, Ottoman, and those listening. Yeah, feel free to call in, share your comments via the social media handles, the social media platforms. I see David is running the numbers through there. The number is called 222-8255, 222-8255. If you are calling from the US or Canada, it's toll free, 866-525-1099, 866-525-1099, and WhatsApp, it's 868-318-1021.
So, Shervon, additionally to that, what we're talking about, we don't believe this public consultation is any public consultation of these sorts at all. The so-called public consultation, I continue to hear them saying something right through. It is for the whole society. It is for the whole society. It is for the whole society. However, as a man sitting there, I felt as though I could only be a perpetrator. There was no representation at any particular point, no illustration, no points made, no examples stated by the panelists of interactions or instances of males being abused. And the panelists were persons who are supposed to have that experience. We had senior counsels, meaning that we had lawyers on the panel. We had the child protection unit, who was also the gender-based violence unit head on that panel. We had the court, a judge on the panel. We also had a clinical psychologist who spoke of quackery on the panel. And we had the AG on the panel at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
No example or illustration in any way of an example of how it appears or what it should look like when a man is a victim. So imagine we had boys there who the only examples they heard of was being a perpetrator. We didn't take the opportunity at any point of their stay there. Even though at some point they would say, men could be victims too. Men, we heard that thrown out there. Men could be victims too. Men could be victims too. Could be, instead of men are victims too.
Well,
no illustration.
I'm trying to find the article because I saw it earlier today. There was a headline today. It says, AG says, I don't want to misquote it because I can't find it right now.
Yeah, I read it too.
And I started to laugh.
When he said it,
when I saw the headline, I said, well, that reporter really, that is what you call finding a needle in a haystack.
He said it. I think they said that they put me in the article too.
Because in the way it was said, as you just said, it was almost a by the way thing.
Correct.
Right? And listen, even in the ads to build up to this talk shop. I'm gonna put it that way. Even the ads that build up to this talk shop, when you listen to the people speaking, when they mention men are victims too, or men could be victims too, the examples they go on to give, at least this is the ads I saw, I don't know if I missed any,
Right.
were women as victims, men as perpetrators. Right?
Correct.
As you said, you have a clinical psychologist there who intimated during her contributions that she does work for the court.
Correct.
So you telling me, Rondell Fields,
Correct.
in all the cases you have done for the court, I don't know how
Correct.
much, that you have not one example you could
Correct.
use of a man being a victim of domestic violence? Not one.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So it was really a by the way. Don't forget, we invite the Fathers Association, so we should say men could be victims or men are victims. Don't forget that. I don't
forget that because that Shervon and them day.
Yes. Them
So,
troublemakers. So don't forget to say that.
Correct. And to me, that is why we would never fix the problem. Because as we said to the end, unless men and women work together, this will not fix. Because honestly, if we understand that we have extended the Domestic Violence Act to capture a number of things, to capture psychological abuse, which is / emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and also financial abuse. I cannot understand how at any point, I'm not saying men don't suffer from physical abuse, Shervon, because I can guarantee you, every single man can give you a story of him being attacked, slapped, hit, beaten by a woman. Now, what I realize with the double standard, let me segue a little bit to the physical part since I don't touch on it already. I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but let me just be real sarcastic or something. Maybe if we are men and we don't get hit hard enough, it isn't abuse. Maybe so. It means that you could beat us. It means you could hit us. It means you could pick up a bottle and pelt us. It means that you could slap us. It means that you could hit me with something. But if we don't feel it, that is not abusive because you is a man. Is it that, Shervon? Is it that? Should we view it like that? Or when she slap you, walk away, boy? Because if you see you hit she, at the end of the day, you're going to hit she harder and she go feel it and it will be abuse. But if you get slapped, cough, kick, bite, scratch, spit on, it's not abuse because you're a big, strong, hardback man. So you can't get abuse. Is it? Is that the thinking? When it comes to abuse, even when we're talking about physical things? Because it confuses me. You wanted to come in with something, Shervon?
Yeah. You know what you're saying there? I actually read in a research paper a few days ago in preparation for this consultation that didn't happen. Where the researcher was saying, in her research, she observed that men are viewed as unacceptable marital violence victims. Unacceptable. Society, in her research, society will view them as that. And she went on to say, one of the most significant things that she found is that men who are larger in size, physically larger, big men, and they have abusive female partners, people live off and saying that can't even be the case.
Correct.
That can't even be the case.
And that is why I had to use that level of sarcasm, Shervon. Because even though we laughing, Shervon, that is how we see it. Even when a man go in the station, that is how they see it. She could really lash you to feel. But you're bleeding, eh? You bleeding. But she could lash you for you to really feel you're a big man, a woman can't hit you.
But we are
Go ahead.
we have seen in Trinidad and Tobago, afternoon business, rapid fire said exactly. They look at us as men as the bad person always. And trust me, I could use my situation as a perfect example. Rapid fire, feel free to call in. Feel free to call and engage, share your feedback, right? We have seen, as you said there, we have seen video recordings of police officers laughing at men who go to report domestic violence. We have seen that. And what is the outcome of that? We see the police put out something saying, well, we're investigating, we're looking into it, and then silence after. Right?
Shervon, I have video that I've sent it to the gender-based violence unit. We've seen videos show this whole thing with women attacking men, and the man keep it at a girl with knife. I remember a particular video, and still I tried. No matter how, it was actually a lawyer's brother. She possibly may be watching as well. And she became so fed up with her brother not going to report and studying to herself, boy, a day she might attack my brother, my brother might do something. That she sent me a video. And if you see this woman attacking this man with this knife, and when she realized she can't overpower him, she ran to the couch and started slicing up the couch. She let her slicing it up, butchering it. And the thing is, we often lie to ourselves and society and say that these things don't happen. And that is how I felt in that consultation. I felt as though there was a level of hypocrisy, particularly when the clinical psychologist was speaking and lamenting and talking about all the issues of what the he's did, the she's. I would still give the judge a level of commendation, even though she didn't specifically come and say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. She did say we can't only speak from one side because there are a number of triggers. You remember her saying that?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. But other than that allusion where she alluded to the fact that, hey, men are attacked, men are provoked, there was nothing else. There was a steamroller of things. And to me, I found that was dangerous because you know what I was looking at? I was looking at the young, impressionable girls in there. And I was listening to their mutterings. Like, yeah, she power. You ever watch a movie, Barbie? Yeah. No, you could, yeah. Like a rivalry type of rebellious type of gang behavior. When you fill a young lady with that, and you don't balance the table to show, hey, you could be that too if you're not careful, then you are then telling her to be that, you know. They use so many examples in that consultation. The day before the consultation or 2 days before, a woman now stab up her husband to death.
I have that in my hand to read out. What was the reporter's
the way they say, as we spoke about, the week before you go on and talk about that, Shervon, the week before that, a woman beat the life. He didn't die, but beat a man into a coma with a rolling pill because she said he gave her STD. So I couldn't understand for the life of me. And a month ago, a woman again, her son was giving the account of his mother who stabbed his father to death too. He said his father was never abusive. He used to like to drink rum, but he don't know his father to be abusive. He's not sure what happened between them. So long and short of the story, I don't understand. And then there's the whole mystifying and the manner how they speak about femicide. And they use a span of nearly 20 years and call the number. Like, you know, I look at that, Shervon. I just didn't want to go tit for tat with them. But they use a span of 20 years to make the number look so high. And if you put the murders or homicides next to femicides, possibly 2 of the last years would have totaled or surpassed the number they used for the last 10 or 15 years they were using for this. Why? You understand? So I'm not saying the lives of the femicides are unimportant or the lives of the homicide is unimportant. But why try to give it such an inflammatory effect when you have a highly impressionable crowd. It's as if you're trying to pervert those that in the crowd. You're trying to fry them into belief, to frighten them into belief. It comes to me similar to the pastor who don't preach about the love of God, but does preach about hellfire only.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shervon.
So I want to quote this reporter. Let me call her name. Anna Lisa Paul. And this reporter is reporting on CNC3 about the murder of a Jonathan Rose that happened on Republic Day, right? But I just reading the last couple lines of her report. She said, reports indicate the two began arguing around 10 p.m. on September 23rd, during which the man was reportedly heard threatening to kill the woman, who wrestled away the knife and later used it to defend herself.
Okay.
And my thing is, whenever has a man murdered a woman, and have you heard a reporter create this defense up front and say the man was defending himself? And Rondell, let me tell you the dangerous precedent we set in. Because there was a case used by one of the panelists, and if I'm not mistaken, it may have been the AG himself, made reference to a case. I don't have all the details of the case, about a woman who murdered her husband, was incarcerated, and then the court found that it was in self-defense. She was a victim of domestic violence or something like that, right? I don't have the details. But if you notice the trend, Rondell, that has been happening in the last couple of years, we put a target on the backs of men. And I'm telling women, it is okay to kill and use self-defense as the get out of jail card. That's what we're doing. And to me, by mentioning that case, that may not have been his intention, I'm certain, right? Because he was comparing case to whatever the Totlamkin case, right? But when we go, why we don't accept? If a man come out and say, that was self-defense, that's why I killed she. Will society accept that the same way? Will the police who show up to investigate that accept it the same way?
No
because
way.
we have seen men murdered, and sometimes weeks later the woman now arrested because the woman gave a story and say I was a victim, and the police say okay, we investigated and leave them alone. Will a man be allowed that same liberty?
No way, Jose. And it stems back to the same thing we're saying, because a man cannot be seen as a victim of domestic violence because he's physically, and that is what dangerous thing, because of his physical structure, he cannot be seen as if he is dangerous. You understand? He cannot be seen, as if he isn't the danger, or if he could be in danger rather. You understand? So, as you rightfully say, I'm a big shafted man. It has some big shafted men who Sophie. Big shafted man with a little small wife. If she decide in the middle of the night for whatever reason to murder him, they will watch the size of he and the size of her. And automatically, the bias that has been subliminally sold to us will set in, and we will start to try to justify why that happened. And that is why what you're saying is very true. If you read many of the times when women kill their husbands, it is automatic that they say self-defense.
Self-defense.
Yeah. And I like the fact you bring up the double standard, because we know very recently it was carried on the news that a man ignited a woman and set her afire. To this day, I still haven't seen the man charged, because a video surfaced after showing someone who appeared to be the victim displaying violence towards the man as well. And then there was another story about how they said the woman self-ignited. Now, I can't tell you what is the truth. Clearly, the media can't tell you what is the truth, because no charges have been laid up to now. But my point in this whole thing is, from the jump with that, everybody knew to say, or the public and the society said immediately, he lied. He lied. That is not true. It could never be true. Dead woman, dead man tell no tale. So all of a sudden, she dead now. They saying she burned herself. But I remember specifically, I don't know if you did, last year, a friend of a particular man reached out to me and told me Mr. Fields, and it was written in the media as well. A gentleman that was set afire or was set aflame. When he was in the hospital, before he died, he identified to the police, he told the police, he made a statement that this woman set me afire. However, after he died, because he died eventually, after saying that, the wife was interviewed, and they say the children was interviewed, and it was alleged that the children say that the father set himself afire. I remember calling the gender-based violence unit after being prompted by that individual who had claimed that the person was always abusive to the man before. I don't know how true it is, I'm just telling you what they say. And the investigator, I think you remember that. I don't know if I brought that to your knowledge. The investigator, she told me that they were doing the investigation. They spoke to other family members, the children, not other family members, the children, and they were saying something else, and they were still investigating. I never heard the woman get locked up yet. I never heard anybody come to the man's defense and say, "I'm sure she lied," when she didn't. I'm sure she lied, and the man, I saw the man telling the truth. Nobody stood for him, even though he, unlike the other lady, made a statement that this is the person that light me on fire. So you see the double standard there.
Yeah. Yep.
And that double standard exists every single time when we discussing domestic violence. I am so afraid for my sons.
I agree.
I am so afraid for them.
Yeah, because I tell you, I've been watching the trend. The trend of when women do kill men, automatically it's self-defense, and everybody believes it. Right? As I say, the police didn't do nothing here in this case yet. But the reporter is saying, like the reporter was an eyewitness inside the living room or the bedroom, wherever it happened.
Shervon, even what you read just now makes no sense. You understand? She can't say, how do you hear a wrestling on the knife out of somebody's hand? So anybody who reads that, if that get before a judge or a jury who's supposed to have sense, it makes no sense. You don't hear that somebody wrestle away a knife from somebody to then stab them in self-defense. How you could hear that?
But I'm telling you, it's easy for people, women to sit down now. That's what we're doing. We're making it normal. And if things aren't working out, if the man leaving and he's the one had the money, he's the provider, and you might end up with nothing, and say, see that? I go deal with he, and I go claim self-defense. And that's the end of it. To me, that's a dangerous, and that's why the example the AG used, to me, was a dangerous example, right? And I don't know that lady's circumstance in the example he used. Let us say she was a victim of domestic violence, and that occurred. The minute you start to spotlight that, right, it will not only be people who are victims. There are people who are mischievous who will use that as a way to get the man out of the picture and get what it is they want, right? And we're talking about double standards. Let me keep on that topic a little bit. The day before, or 2 days before, if so much, the consultation, the news broke of a prominent member of government, a senator, right, being served an interim protection order, a female. And we know, Rondell Fields, if that was a male government senator who was served that, the city would have burned down and we would not have been jamming still. In fact, they may have had to cancel that DV consultation because half the people inside there would have been marching around the Red House demanding that he step down if it was a male. But because it is a female, all of a sudden, the comments are, there are two sides to our story. Allow the opportunity for the truth to come out. All of these things, again, that are not afforded to men who are in the same situation.
Correct.
Because we have said here at nausea, Marlon and I was here talking domestic violence a couple months ago, and we acknowledge an interim protection order, the way it happens, if you all don't know Trinidad and Tobago, for those who don't know, right? I go and I make an application against my partner, and oftentimes the hearing is set within 0 to 7 days. It could be heard now, or it could be heard within 7 days, depending on the circumstances. And oftentimes, the police does not have the opportunity to serve my partner in time for them to come to court before the date of the hearing. And depending on the circumstances I provide to the magistrate or master, depending on the evidence I provide to the magistrate or master, they would then say, here what? I will grant an interim protection order telling them to stop cussing you, pelting thing behind you, whatever it is I say, and set a date of hearing for X date. Right? So we have said that an interim protection order don't necessarily mean you have actually done what you are being alleged to do. But no matter how we say that, people say hang man high when an allegation of domestic violence is made. Where are the same people now? Where are the same people who have been marching around the Red House calling for this for the female in this situation, who is the alleged perpetrator, to be hanged without getting a fair hearing?
Correct. And I listened to the comments on television. I watched the comments on Facebook. And as you rightfully said, we have seen men who have had ex parte orders. How much times we come with Ken Gransol, who get put out the house? He always getting put out the house based on false allegation. And when you look at the comments, when we highlight those scenarios, did I say, well, the woman ain't mad? I saw the woman. Look at him. He look like he shot as bitchy. The woman ain't crazy. You feel the judge mad? The judge must know why the judge do X, Y, Z. But as you rightfully say, it is a strategy, so to speak. The judge must see something that make her feel like, hey, let me be cautious here, right? If somebody could be a danger to somebody, so in the abundance of caution, let me really give the order and then give a date not so long after, so that this person could have their stay in court, right? Possibly they didn't get served or whatever, no problem. But let me still give the order, because the man may need some level of protection. Most time it's the woman that does do this for. But as you rightfully said, when we come and speak of the allegation made against the person, and it's sometimes being a false allegation, they always condemn the man. But in this instance, I have never seen so many people so viciously defend an allegation made against a person of that nature. Let me read something for you as I touched on that. This is something that the opposition leader said about the scenario. And I give her full kudos for saying so, because we need women to be honest. And that is what irks me. I would judge somebody when I see them do those things, Shervon. If you are an honest person, you cannot see a similar scenario and get a different feeling. It means your integrity needs to be checked. It means there is an internal bias that is corrupting your brain, and it needs to be checked. Let me read what the opposition leader said. Domestic violence is committed by both women and men. If this was a male politician, that's not my phone. If this was a male politician being accused of domestic violence in a court of law, the media would have been inundated with calls for action against him. The commentators would have been raking him over the coals. Women have equal rights as men, and therefore should understand they also have equal responsibilities as men. As for her removal, that is for her leader, and her party to decide. She claims innocence and has the right to access the court to clear her name. But the good and decent men in our country are looking on at the double standards on display regarding this entire incident. You could understand that?
Definitely. Couldn't say it any better. Could not say it any better.
That is
Could not say it any better.
exactly.
Because
I give
Go
Mr. Kamla Prasad Bisesta full kudos. And I'm saying that non-politically because I ain't saying nobody to vote or not to vote for she. But I respect what she says. If you look at a scenario, being a woman yourself and see it and can't call it that just because it look like you or it's your gender, you support the wrong thing or turn a blind eye, then you are not a person of integrity. You are a disingenuous person. You are a hypocrite, even if you don't feel like one. I love what she said. She said, so if this was, so in other words, she's saying, if this was a man, the media would have been clamored with calls to get him out, to destroy him, to eradicate him. He's a pest. And I love what she's saying in the end. The good, upstanding men of this society is looking on at the double standards that exist within it. I don't think you say again.
I agree with the honorable leader of the opposition. I agree with her wholeheartedly. Because you and I don't have to look too far in the past to find examples of men who were accused of particular behaviors, whether that is domestic violence, whether that is sexual harassment and so on. And the accusation was enough to condemn him. No chance or opportunity
and totally discredited.
Right? And totally discredited. The accusation was sufficient. And now we have the same pundits, right, who are saying, wait and let the thing go through the process and let the truth come out.
That's troubling. That really troubling to me.
But
it means that
confident. Had that been a male senator, that would have been the central point in that domestic violence consultation on Wednesday. Did you notice? Not one person mentioned that case.
Jeez and ages.
The psychologists could have reached for cases in the past.
And forget that one already. Correct.
And then nobody mentioned it.
None of the parliamentarian colleagues, nobody mentioned it. Silent about it.
You telling me the government is putting on a consultation to address the very critical issue of domestic violence. And there's a very real example of the domestic violence process and all of the things surrounding it happening. And nobody mentions that. And you telling me if that wasn't a man, that would have made mass down there?
Correct. And that could have been utilized as we did when we addressed the media to encouragement, because from the jump we said we don't know if she's guilty, we don't know if she's innocent. However, we commended his action. We encouraged his action. That if you feel you are in danger or you are at a threat or somebody pelting stuff at you, somebody saying things to you that you are uncomfortable with, and there are laws to protect you, that you seek redress. That is his right. So if he does this, why is it that it comes across now to the society as if they love to talk about victim blaming, but it's as if everybody telling the man he should have never do that. Nobody beside us has stepped forward and tell this man you were courageous to do what you did.
Yeah.
If this man is really a victim, you know the level of courage he had to amass to do that, because he would have to then contemplate what action was going to be taken, and this was going to be in the media, and she could really lose her position. So it tells me,
you know that he's a man, you know he will be ridiculed as well. He knows he will not be supported by majority as well.
Correct. But at point, because of the person and who the person is in public life, Shervon, he would have to say to himself, Shervon, me and she for sure done. Because after this, let's say it was something that was a fallout. It can't be a minor one-off or exaggeration. This is something that somebody is going to sit and contemplate of what the repercussion is going to be and tell themselves that despite the repercussion, this has reached a position that I need to do something. Because I prefer he did that than they do have those squabbles and fightings and they start to really fight. And then we read in the papers, God forbid, one day, another story. And I'll go to the next point, Shervon. And it's a point that we raised. You have extended, and I didn't like how they run away from that. That lawyer in your council, what's your name is Sweet or whoever? You know what's her name? Remember what's her name, Shervon?
Yeah, Leonard C. Sweet.
Right. That's right. I don't like how she kind of came in to try to make justifications of certain things. We have a statistic presented by the Attorney General's office that has been gathered by the police that shows that between 2019 to 2024, the highest number in that span of reports that came in for psychological and emotional abuse was 4. Now, I get her point, the Sweet, when she came in after, when she was talking about, okay, this is just the TTPS reports, but there are persons who take action in the court, and if you go and check applications in the court, you're going to see at that level that there are going to be persons who've made applications in greater numbers for psychological abuse than just 4. I take that point. But you cannot rubbish for me the fact that the police who is in the community, who is on the ground, who should be the number where the number is even greatest. Because it's easier to walk in a station, Shervon, and make a report than for you to go and start a whole matter in the court. So even if we are saying that is the sole results given by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, it means to me, the man on the ground who may not have the money for a lawyer to make an application of domestic violence in a court, or the man on the ground who may not have the understanding as to what he should do or go to any court to do so, or have any legal friend to guide him, not walking in the police station and making a simple report. It says to me also that though we have extended the law, the common man on the ground still doesn't understand it to a perspective where he actually can tell, he or she can actually tell himself that I am a victim of psychological abuse. I am a victim of emotional abuse. And he will continuously then subject himself to that abuse because he doesn't see that he's being abused. And you know why that happens? And I tried to make the point, and then Miss Sweet tried to come with that talk to rubbish it. As I said, sensitization. If you have widened the law to try to capture a new type of abuse, see a new type of perpetrator, new types of victims, because there's new parts that we included, you must sensitize your nation as into what it appears to be. So why is it only the depiction of physical abuse? And you saw the numbers of physical abuse, how crazy and high it was. Because that is all being depicted in the television ads from the gender-based violence unit. It's all being depicted from the Attorney General office when they do it. When the office of the Prime Minister doing ads, it's always a depiction of a man beating a woman.
But, and that's the point, right? I heard the representative of the AG's office, and forgive me, I cannot remember your name, so I don't want your name properly, I don't want to butcher it. But in her response to you as well, she spoke about, well, we were doing ads back in the day, sensitizing. And I am saying my response to that is, and that's when you do get to do public consultation, right? You ain't getting to talk. Right. Is who are you sensitizing? Because if you're talking about the ads I see on TV, it's not the men you're sensitizing as well. Correct. Because all the ads I have seen bar one And that is when the TTPS realized we were going to have a program to address them specifically,
Correct.
right? And the bias approach of the gender-based violence unit at the time, right? There's all the ads, as you say, show men as perpetrators
Correct.
and women as victims. I have said time and time again that when I am sitting my children and we watching primetime TV, my boys especially, that I had to change it. I keep the remote in my hand to change the TV when those ads come up, because those ads go confuse them. And while I teach them about not being a bully and not abusing anyone, I also have to tell them what abuse looks like and that they can be a victim of it. And if I subject them to look at those ads every day, eventually, you know what they will think?
You're wiring them one way.
I am just a perpetrator. Perpetrators look like me. I could never be a victim. And if they can't see themselves as a victim, they will not seek help. They will not come and talk to me as their father, right? They will not tell me there's a problem. And they will, because they don't believe they are victim.
Correct. Totally agree. Totally agree. And
rapid fire, let me just answer rapid fire. Rapid fire saw your messages. And I assume what you're saying here is that you believe you are not the father of a child. Your name is on the birth certificate, right? And you will take on the court for maintenance. Not because your name is on the birth certificate means that you cannot challenge your paternity of the child, right? So your name is on the birth certificate, don't condemn you and say that, listen, well, your name there already, that is it, you have to pay the maintenance. No. You can request of the court, the same court, a paternity test.
Paternity order, yeah.
So paternity order to confirm if you are the father of the child, and then the next steps will follow, right? So you don't have to accept that because your name is on the birth paper, and that's what I am assuming you're saying, because your name on the birth paper, you think that is the end of it, right? No. Even if your name is on the birth certificate, you can still request, make an application for a paternity order. The court will send you all to do the testing, and after it's confirmed if you are the father or not, then the next steps will follow from there. Go ahead, Rondell.
Very good. Very, very, very good. And even that, it's so strange that he slapped that inside of there. It's so strange. Because I don't even know if they'll call it psychologically abusive too, but I can tell you many a man, when they go in the court, when they go in the court, the intimidation, 90% in the brain, they telling themselves, I know that child is not mine. And they are fearsome of the consequences of the child really coming back after to be theirs. In consideration, they're thinking that, hey, if I only seem to appear as to deny this child, what will happen to me if the child is really mine? And I put that part not on the mother, I put that part on the court. Because I asked some magistrates that respond, so you don't believe the child is yours. So all of a sudden the child is not yours. You didn't know that all the time. You sleep with the woman, so you know the child is not yours. So you want to put in the test. And that is the mannerism of some of the judges and magistrates. And that is abusive.
It comes back now that the child is yours. And now you're saying, well, I want access this way and that. Also, now all of us.
I don't know what's your child. You ain't care about that child from no time, pay this, pay that, pay the other. So men live with that real-time fear.
But what I thought you were going to say is the men who don't even know. They didn't walk in with the assumption that the child is not theirs. They believe the child is theirs. But the court process, imagine that, Rondell, because we know you have.
I don't imagine, we know that.
Yeah, we've dealt with men like that, where who raise a child, and the child now is 10 years, 12 years, 13 years old, and to then find out that this child is not yours. Imagine that is psychological and emotional abuse.
Correct.
That's abuse. This is not a plug. You could just unplug and say, oh, well, this is not my child. Fine. I gone. No, that is
Correct.
abuse.
Correct.
And I was grateful, Rondell, that Justice Hines, who was on the panel, pointed out when you asked the question about
Parental.
men being about parental alienation, not just men, but parental alienation. If parental alienation could be considered a form of emotional and psychological child abuse, and she confirmed it.
And I know that is so pivotal and important, and men need to now consider that. I think I made mention of it on some show that I was speaking on, and mothers now need to be very careful. So I hope mothers listening to us as well. And let me don't make it about mother, father. You know, they say that the reason I often say mother, because it is statistically proven that mass majority of those who have custodial care of the children, court-ordered custody of the children, care and control, are mothers, more so than men are. And we'll be honest to say that in most times, we don't have the stats for this part, but in our experience, most times the person who is often withheld from the child is a non-custodial parent is the father, right? So, that being said, those mothers, particularly those of you who have court orders that specifies that the non-custodial parent, who be him being the father, comes to access his child and you deny him the right to access his child. It was pleasing for me to hear the judge equate that, Shervon, as emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, because it is really that. And not only emotionally abusive to the man, but so to the child. And because the child is part of the relationship, it then now empowers the other parent, who is a non-custodial parent, let me say is the father in this case, to now have the power to seek redress under the Domestic Violence Act on behalf of himself and his child, to have a protection order or some order of a sort written against you or ordered against you because of your breach of the civil court order.
Well, I'm not even going there. I go in before. There isn't required to be a access order in place to make this application or not.
I know.
You are the father of a child, right? By law, you have access to your child. You don't need to go to the court for access first, and then when they breach the access, Rondell, then to apply for this.
I know.
The fact that you are preventing me from accessing my child, I can make this application from the word go. Right? Because I don't need a court order for you to give me access to my child. When you're preventing me from access is when I need a court order. Right? But from the word go, we are encouraging anyone going through this situation. You're being prevented access from your child. Go to the court and make an application for a protection order under the grounds of emotional and psychological abuse. There's a section in the definition of emotional and psychological abuse, Rondell, that says preventing a person from making or keeping connection with his family or friends.
Correct.
Right? And family is your child is your family.
Correct. Well, let me give you guys advice on top of that, Shervon, because we had to give them advice. It will be easier, more so for the persons who have the court order to prove the breach that was taking place before. So if you don't have the access order at this point in time, what I recommend you do is, if you have your phone and you're trying to get access, you screenshot messages where you're trying to make attempts, because you can't go to court with hearsay. You have to go with evidence. And sometimes I'm not even sure if a witness evidence will suffice, because you have to convince the judge. So long and short of the story, if you do not, this is just for edification, and this is something that we just learned this week. So this is why we're guiding you guys in the both scenarios. If you have a current access order and you realize it's being breached, go to the station, make sure you get a police receipt, because that police receipt will serve as evidence that you are not granted permission to access the civil court order, which was given there by the family court. So once you have that 2 or 3 times, then by then you are being prohibited. So the judge can't say boo, because I have evidence from a police station where they would have reached out to the mother, asked the mother to come to get the child, or if it's a mother who's the non-custodial parent and the father is the custodial parent and doing that to you, mommy, you reach out, get your police receipts, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and then go to the court and seek domestic violence and emotional abuse. Because as Shervon just read, you have evidence in your hand that your relative is being kept away from you unjustly. One regard. But let's say in the instance, and as I say, this is something new, so we're fleshing it to you guys so you could try it. In the instance as Shervon spelled out, where there is no court order.
Apply for the both, I would say, Rondell.
Exactly. So
apply
you have to use
and apply for the protection order simultaneously.
Correct. If you want to go and apply for it, fine, but we could try the way you suggest too, Shervon. Snap, but you need evidence. What you need to do, you snap a screenshot. I want to pick up the child today, girl. Boy, you ain't getting no child today. You take a video, you come to get the child. Go inside, you ain't getting to see. Go from here. You have evidence, video evidence, snapshot evidence, and as the only thing the lawyer must say that was good for, in my point of view, which is honest, is that they're using that to show psychological abuse and show emotional abuse. Screenshots from WhatsApp messages, video footage to show WhatsApp message to show that you're being emotionally abused. So I think it is a good thing to try it that way too, with the access order and the police receipt. And even if you have a breach of court order in some next quarter at this point in time, those things will serve for those who already have access orders. But even if you don't, gather evidence that you can present to a court to show that this person is being wrongfully your relative is being wrongfully withheld from you, and you want to apply to the under the Domestic Violence Act that you're suffering from emotional abuse.
Yeah, definitely. Empress Lal, thank you for joining us today, and everyone else who's listening. Remember, numbers to call on the screen. If you are listening, and you can't look at the screen, the numbers to call are 222-8255, 222-8255. If you're calling from the US or Canada, it's toll free 866-525-1099. WhatsApp is 868-318-1021, or you could keep sending your messages to our social media pages. So, Rondell, there's some other points that came out that I want us to touch on here, and I make some notes. Let me right.
Before you jump in, Shervon, you know this funny human side?
What's that?
You know just nah. All right. Because you see, I'm really looking at fleshing out this, because I always hear all these grandmothers and all of these persons, but they may say they're not in the direct home now, immediate relationship now. So, but you know, you always hear the grandmother saying she ain't getting to see the block her from seeing the child. Sometimes the father isn't moving forward to take action, and it has some grandmothers ready to take action too, you know. But that might be a little distant from the immediate home to come under that. So as we telling you all, this is something that we just learned this Tuesday going here. Well, we thought about it, and it was confirmed by the judge that a matter can be brought. So definitely those are things that we're going to test. And one thing we leave out, Shervon, the reason we are telling you to go to the domestic violence court is because the domestic violence court order carries a different consequence to the family court access order. The breach of the family court access order, the police normally can't do nothing. They have to tell you here what, go and apply for a breach of court order, you go back before a magistrate, yada, yada, yada. No, under the Domestic Violence Act, is under a criminal nature. So mommy or daddy, if you are the custodial parent and an order is made by a judge that you are not to breach the access order that was granted by the court and you breach it, you will get locked up. That is why we are telling you to go and make an application under the Domestic Violence Act, because the consequences are two very different consequences. And that consequence under the Domestic Violence Act is what I think, Shervon, will cause big people to act like big people. Because if you know now somebody has gotten a protection order for their access order, that if you breach it again, the police ain't going and ask no question. They come in and lock you up. You will see people more willing to do what they're supposed to. Go ahead, Shervon. Sorry about that.
No. I'm glad you touch on that point.
Right.
And I want to close off this point. I want to use back Ms. Kamla Prasad Bisessa's statement. What did she say, Rondell? At the end of her statement, good men are looking on.
Correct. Good men are looking at the double standard.
We want to say to the court and to the police, as men begin to come to make these applications for protection orders under emotional and psychological abuse because they are being kept away from their children, as confirmed by the Learned Justice Times, good men are looking on to see how you all are going to respond to these applications.
Very good.
We are looking on.
Very
and
good.
We are saying to men who go and make those applications, please give us feedback.
Correct.
Right? Reach out to us on our Facebook page, message us directly, give us feedback. We want to know how the court and the police are responding to these applications for protection orders under these grounds.
But Shervon, before you move on, you think as big people, boy, we really should have to go through this? You understand where I'm coming from? Why do you want to let the man just lead, child?
That is where I am going. That is where I'm going.
Go ahead. Go, bro. Go.
Where I'm going. Because the point I wanted to segue into is, while we touch Rondell on that domestic violence is occurring, and we get some stats and we get some of the issues in application of the law and the processes and all those things, the conversation never delved into what is causing domestic violence. What causing it in the first place? What are the motivating factors that are causing it? Gina, I hope I pronounce your name good. Gina Benny, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your comment. What is causing it, Rondell? And again, in preparation to participate in this conversation on Wednesday, I was again reading some research, and I came upon this research in Spain. And there's a published research paper there in 2020 called Bargaining Under Threats: The Effect of Joint Custody Laws on Intimate Partner Violence. And what the researchers found, Trinidad and Tobago and those listening internationally, is that when Spain moved to implement equal parenting time in their legislation, they saw some tremendous things happening. Number one, Rondell, before they introduced equal parenting time, only about 11% of divorces judges gave equal parenting time. Now we have some research on that in Trinidad, right?
Yeah, 2%.
After they introduced equal parenting time, it rose to about 40% of the cases in 5 years. But here, imagine, after they started giving out more equal parenting time, domestic violence cases dropped by 50%. You see that correlation, right?
Of course.
When they started to give more shared parenting time, domestic violence started reducing, which tells me the issue of conflict and fighting in the court and separation was a major contributing factor to domestic violence. And when they addressed the issue of conflict by giving fathers equal and shared time, then domestic violence plummeted by 50%.
But let me look deeper. What was the conflict that was resolved? By that, the sharing of time with the child. So the allegation, that leads to show the allegation that you've heard a lot of non-custodial parents make, whether they be male or female, of the child being used as a weapon. It's true.
Correct.
So when the state say, let us de-weaponize the child.
Correct.
So now the child have no value to nobody else more than anybody else. Not that you have more value, but you understand what I say.
Yes. Yes.
Nobody have more control or nobody have more power over the child.
Right.
Let us de-weaponize that power aspect of it. And everybody have equal opportunity to parent and experience and be a part of the child life. You are left with little or nothing to have conflict over, because the only thing that you share many times is the child.
Yep.
So I can definitely see, and domestic violence is broad. Some of the cases might have been verbal. Some of the cases may have been, as you say, psychological, whichever way. So a number of the cases, and then if they eventually start to have a proper co-parental relationship, they will have less acrimony amongst themselves.
Rondell,
I move on with my woman, you move on with your man, and we have each other.
They also found a reduction in homicides in domestic violence cases. So it affected everything, emotionally, mentally, physical violence. It affected all of it because, as you put it succinctly, they weaponized the child. There was no weapon to use anymore.
Correct.
Anthony
what
and
they go fight for? Why you think, Shervon? 99.9% of the time when the children reach 18 and go on, nobody here quarreling again. Nobody don't hate nobody again. Nobody have no bacchanal again. Because neither party have no control. Sometimes the child have time with neither of them. When the child, that's why did I say when the child reach 18, it is because during the time of control of the parents is where the loggerheads are.
Yep.
Don't do this here and don't do that there. But when you give one party to say, hey, when the child is with me, I understand that I have a duty of care over the child, but the child is with me. So I have to keep the child safe, but the child is governed when the child is governed in my space. When the child comes to you, the child is governed when the child is governed in your space. You have a duty of care for our child when the child is in your control. So you have very little to none reason when, and they have no maintenance for that. So nobody had to pay no child support, and he missing child support, and he don't pay. And when he dies, it means the woman even have less to say about the man if he ain't paying, or if the woman ain't paying, he's a deadbeat, or he's a whatever. So it really eliminates a lot of opportunity for this domestic dispute.
Correct. I tell you, it's slashing foot by half, not by 10%, not by a quarter, not by a third, by half. Half of the domestic violence cases disappear.
See?
Half disappear.
And as you rightly said, Shervon,
addressing the issue of conflict.
Correct. And you're right. There was no discussion on those things, no discussions on triggers, no discussions on if provocation plays a place, no discussion on these on preventative measures, no discussion on programs that could prevent this from happening, no discussion on the culture and the part that our culture plays. And that's why we have to make known to them. We have seen it in numerous places where culture derails legislation. But that is why I think sometimes it is not a genuine approach. Something happened, the woman sued them, and because now they're afraid it to become an international thing to talk about, let's throw a consultation. When we throw the consultation, let's say we support what happened and we're not going to appeal because we're in support and we're here for this XYZ. But no real meaningful change. Let me be real, Shervon. If we do not apply strategies that prevent, do you think if a person, whether man or woman, has become murderous or suicidal to a point, a piece of paper could stop them? You think so? You think the police have a crystal ball to know where out of the blues that going to come from? So we have to use the measures of prevention if you really want to impact it. And that parenting was a measure, a proactive approach. And that is why you saw the result you saw.
Kudos.
Because it would have made me have been involved.
And judiciary
Correct.
for that move. Kudos. Because
I don't know, but I don't know if you really want to fix this, you know.
And correct. Where in that discussion on Wednesday did we center around addressing that? Because as you say, we can't police we can't put a policeman on every corner. How long are we going to take a police to reach from wherever they are to the house where the conflict is happening? We have to address the issue of conflict resolution. What is
and let me show you something, Shervon. People may not agree with me, but you know I just talk the cold, hard truth. You know sometimes, let's say, look, I read out for you, and I'll read it again. I read out for the country the message that this gentleman had sent me early in the morning. And to paraphrase, because the amount of messages on the phone, I may not be able to pull it up right away. The gentleman was saying, that hear what? He have a daughter, and from the jump, Shervon, he's tried to be in his daughter's life. The mother then took another man, went and registered the birth of the daughter, put the man name on it. So from the jump, he was denied access to the child because he was not seen as the legitimate father. He said by some whips or whamps, he was able to convince the man to bring the child at some point, possibly unbeknown to the mother. Do a paternity test. Prove that he is the paternal father. Then he sought a redress at the courts. For years, the man saying, 5 years, nearly 5 years now. He can't have the woman served or brought before the court. He has information that the child is about 8 years now. The child isn't going to school. He has information that the mother has no intention to put the child in school. He reached out to the mother to allow him to put the child in school. He even went to her home to attempt it at one point, very recently. And the man, the new boyfriend she had, attacked him with a cutlass. So this man messages me and says to me, Mr. Fields, I am on a point where I am totally frustrated. He said, I often think about killing myself, and this is wrecking my life. So from the time a person tells me that they have found a place in their mind where they have contemplated to a serious level suicide, I know it is a risk also for that person who they see as the reason for making them reach that place. Because if you could kill yourself, brother, you could kill anybody else with you.
Mm-hmm.
So in an instance like that, Shervon, where a man might go, let me say he tried to go through the court system and he still at the end of the day, they make some excuse and he don't get to see the child. And then they present a court order later down the road, a protection order, because he still persistent to see the child. And then at that point, he decides to still try to go and see the child. And on an attempt to try to see the child, they decide to lock him up. And he go in jail. And he sit down after all these years of what he tried to do. He said he went Churn Authority, he said he went CPU, he said he went Oropouche Police Station. Nobody give him a hearing. Nobody. He asking me to see if I can get the president to hear him. And he decided in that cell when they hold him after then, let me go and do something stupid. Have you further protected the mother or put her in even greater danger? So we can't have an honest discussion about this without treating with the things that could trigger people. And if we look at triggers in his scenario, you have the murder action is a trigger. You have the court not addressing the man matter in a timely way. You have the police that failing the man. You have the children authority that for years nobody taking action. These are independent triggers that are causing one result. If this man got redressed anywhere here, Shervon, you feel by now he'll be feeling suicidal?
You know you're correct.
And that is my point.
Wendell and I sat on this program some months ago, and we both said, I said, you given an example there, and I having flashbacks. Because I sat right here and said that when I was going through my situation in the early days, I had gotten so low mentally that eventually I thought my only way out was to commit violence. That's where I reached. So when I hear people reach there, I understand enough. Thank God for Jesus. Right? For saving me and taking me along the path that he take me. But bro, I understand that when you feel you have exhausted all of the institutions that you thought could assist you, and you burn the end of it and try everything under the sun, and have no more recourse, something inside you that's eventually snapping up.
And say, let me take justice in my own hands.
Something
and that is why I find it highly hypocritical when people say that's still not a reasoning for doing anything.
They could say it's not a reason, and don't treat with it. The result will happen.
Correct. Long and short of the story, you could say nobody has the right, but you would be hypocritical to say if somebody has been taking the right methodology all their life and they are being subjected to a particular type of abuse, then where do you leave them? And you know what's funny? Everybody understood that your emotions and your neglect from society and your abandonment from those who could help you could cause you to trigger when it was alleged a scenario that we're seeing in Tobago right now with a woman and her children. We don't have the facts as yet because the postmortem is supposed to be on Monday, but the allegations are damning. Everybody understands it in that perspective, where if what is alleged is true, she would have committed murder. Just as a man who sometimes commit based on whatever they feel at that point in time, takes the life of somebody else and takes their own after. So the double standards, even as the honorable opposition leader was saying, even as the things you pointed out, is glaring. And it can't only be glaring to men. It's glaring to women. And there are some women, the opposition leader and a handful of others, that are willing to admit this. You know why? I think they understand that if they join us and admit this, and we can actually correct it, it will be better off for victims of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Because as they say, Shervon, we could put your head in the sand.
You're correct. And that's what we can make the police process as swift as possible. The court process as swift as possible. We can make the paper move from A to B in lightning speed. If we don't address the things that are creating conflict, then we will still be dealing with this issue. And yes, we like the cat Blanchett, right? There are men and women who are abused for power and control, right? But that is not everybody in a domestic violence situation, right? The people who do it for power and control, they get all the attention. As if you hear all the talk about, oh, man want to be macho and man want to be this and man. yeah, and slavery and all kind of things they talk about back in it, right? All of those things.
Mm.
But that is not everybody. Every
Mm.
situation of conflict and intimate partner violence is not somebody who just trying to be controlling, and somebody who don't want a woman to go nowhere, and somebody, no, that is not everything. That is some, and it needs to be addressed. But if we make that the diagnosis for all, right, what we go see happening, what we see happening now. Every couple of years we having a domestic violence talk. We are mending this, changing that, switching this, and the problem still standing up in front we face grinning. Why?
You don't know why?
No,
I understand.
When I was going to symposium, he said, you remember that song you always play for me? They don't deal with the real issues. My son tell me that, big son. And he was right, because we are not dealing with the real issues. I want to say good evening. We have a couple people. Osei, good afternoon. Thanks for messaging. Donna, Marcus hit a point here, Rondell. I know you go feel it. I feel it too. He said, I thank my mother for her prayers and emotional support she gave me, because it ain't easy. We both know about that, Marcus.
Correct.
Afternoon, Kevin.
Yeah, moderate still?
No, that's it.
Right. All the laws and all the amendments, and even as you rightfully say, we get all the laws in place. We get all the systems in place to get a court speedy verdict, right? It means that we say and pat ourselves on our shoulders and say we've done well. But let us look at intimate partner femicide. Unofficially, I could say or think to say that is almost possibly 80% of the time there is nobody to prosecute after. You know why? Because that person killed himself. So the only solution could be preventative, particularly in the instances when we're dealing with intimate partner femicide. Not just the violence. They might survive that part. But I'm talking about the femicide part, which is the one that people that only now start to look when somebody dead. It doesn't care when the fighting going on, no. But it's when a death pass, then we just care. But if you look at it,
fighting, if you go back to what we're talking about, not even fighting, but you know that, and that happens, right? You know your child not letting the father see the child, and you're condoning it, and you're supporting it.
Correct. So, exactly. So, as I'm telling you, unless we use the preventative measures, we could come with any legislative work, we could come with any systemic infrastructure that we think will be quick and justice could be served quickly. When we're dealing particularly with femicide, to get intimate partner femicide to decrease, it must be a preventative approach. Because from what we've seen when it occurs, it most times ends in murder-suicide. So no matter what system you have in place, I'm not saying you don't have the laws too. You need them for those who may not suicide themselves. At the end of the day, that cannot be the fix, and you rub your belly and you rub your back and feel you fix something. We have to go to the proactive approach. We have to go to the programs that need to be in the community even before they get married. That's why I keep talking about social development, having that mandate to develop your society. You must be able to have a marriage counselor in that office, in every community center. You have a marriage counselor for young people when they now want to get married. Or you have another counselor for if they separate, if they're going through hard times to help them through the marriage. You have a different counselor, a conflict, a counselor that has expertise in conflict resolution. If they're separated and they want to separate peacefully, you have programs for financial literacy in the community so that husbands and wives could manage their finance. Sometimes that does bring enmity.
When I say that, a main cause of divorce It's financial strain.
Of course. So why we don't have these things to cure these social ills in our society? When it's issues with the children, issues, we supposed to have a center, and we have community center everywhere. What we need is agents that can assist our communities, that people have confidence and trust in, and they advertise in a vigorous way, that they get people to come out and utilize this place. Those are the topics I just talk about, the ones we're talking about there. That is the psychosocial issues your entire society going through right now. A man is a police officer, run and get 10 bullets behind him, you know, come home and hear your wife. They should have a space to come and speak to make their relationship work. Bro.
Let me give you this one too. Talking about causes, right? This is research done by Daniel McQueen, 2018, published in the Cambridge University Press. So me making up this. The researchers concluded that a significant proportion of females seeking help for victimization are also perpetrators of intimate violence, intimate partner violence, and that those who treat battered women may need to consider addressing the perpetration of violence with their female clients. So what they also found, there was, and the judge alluded to it, she didn't get to go into it, Rondell, is that there's also a high degree of reciprocity when you're talking about domestic violence. A high degree of two people being violent. What you see is the result when one person dead or badly wounded. But there was, as the Asian neighbors say, both of them fighting all the time.
Correct. They have video of them fighting. Why these conversations not honest so by Shervon? When after I sit down in that room and there's only one narrative.
I come prepared to talk about Wednesday. I tell you, I come home.
But it was demotivating, so I understood why
you're real upset.
It was demotivating.
And read till 3 o'clock in the morning, excited to have a meaningful conversation. We almost out of time. Kevin, go back and look at the video. This recording when it's posted. We touched on what you should do if you're not being allowed access, right? I don't know if you just came on, right? But I want to take the last 3 minutes, finally, to say congratulations to you, Rondell, because we haven't been on this program since. You were awarded the Hummingbird Silver Medal. And yes, I know you've said that is the work of all of us, but you have stood at the top, at the helm. You take the beating, you take the licks, you take your name being dragged through the mud, right? And so we want to say congrats to you. It is well deserved, right? And to me, this is an acknowledgement of all the people who make up this awards committee, right? Which is state and others, right? This, to me, this is an acknowledgement that of the things that you and we have all been advocating for, right? And an acceptance of those things. And I am saying with you that if you're giving Rondell a medal for the things that he has been advocating for, then act on it.
I agree with you.
I want to take time out to endorse what you just said there, Shervon. I thought about leaving it, the best for last, because I must commend Rondell on the community service that he offers all the time. That's an A with about 100 L's behind it. I really want to endorse that statement because I too was just about to say it before the program ended that I want to commend you and congratulate you. And I pray, I know you're a spiritual brother also. I pray that the good Lord will more strength and energies to fight the good fight on behalf of men and by extension, the society. So hats off to you, my brother.
Thanks for that. It means a lot. I appreciate it a lot. And I mean, thanks to Trinidad and Tobago, thanks to whoever nominated me. I mean, I'm really, really, really grateful for that. Shervon, as I said, I see it as, I had to be able to share this with you guys, but as well as see it also as a statement of approval that, hey, the things that been advocated for, had to be beneficial to society, because at times it's daunting when you see people purposely try to misunderstand you and mislabel you. And I mean, I just say, Mark, I thank God for being that inspiration in my life. I thank God for having a mother who inspired me in both community service and in having a prayerful life. If it wasn't for that, trust me, I wouldn't be surviving today. So
I know it's highly motivational also.
correct. So on my side, guys, enjoy yourself. Have a nice weekend. Thanks for the commendation. Looking forward to see you guys next week again. Same time, same place.
Thanks, Trinidad and Tobago. Have a good
Yes.
evening, all.
Thanks,
David,
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Rondell. Do have a blessed and safe weekend, fellas.
All right, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk featuring the Fathers Association with our national awardee, Rondell Fields, and his co-host and colleague in the Fathers Association, Shervon Lewis. They'll be back next Friday for another episode of Hard Talk right here at Power 102 Digital. I want to thank also Rapid Fire and a whole lot of people, Empress Lal, Ikosi Philip, the Storytell, Dr. Storytell, and everybody who contributed with their comments to the program.